Hi, welcome to Introduction to Microsoft Visual Studio 2013 using the Visual Basic language. Now, as you may surmise, Visual Studio can be used with various programming languages. I will be showing the use of the Visual Basic language while in Visual Studio. Visual Studio can be used with either C++, C Sharp, F Sharp, and various other languages. The prerequisites for this particular course is that you have ownership of a computer with Microsoft Visual Studio 2013 already installed, and that you have administrative access to the computer. Demonstrations will be performed using Visual Basic language. Hi, this is Victor, and welcome to this presentation on programming using Microsoft Visual Studio 2013 with the Visual Basic language. What you're looking at is my Windows 8.1 desktop, and I will go down to the lower left hand corner, and you see by default when I click on the start button that by default one of the items available for me is Visual Studio 2013. Now, after your first install of Visual Studio, and when you go to use it for the first time, this will probably not show up for you by default. What you will need to do is what I'm going to do right now. Hover over all programs, and you see how the number of applications greatly increased for me. You will have to hover over all programs so that Visual Studio 2013 will show up like this for you. I'm going to click on back, and I'm back to my original menu now. I clicked on start, and 2013 starts up for me. And before we get into writing code, because Visual Studio is much more than just a code editor or text editor, we will look at some of the options and some of the ways that we can possibly customize Visual Studio based on your personal preferences, what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see, what you don't want to see. First of all, I like to point out that the toolbox, in my particular instance, the toolbox shows up on the left-hand side and is pinned in position already automatically. And on the right-hand side, Solution Explorer is also pinned in its position. That is the way that my Visual Studio was the last time I shut it down. It remembers the settings from when the last time you used it. And I'll demonstrate that very quickly. I will unpin the toolbox, and on the right side I will unpin Solution Explorer. And you see they're still available. I can click on Toolbox for it to show up, but I will not pin it in position. I can click on Solution Explorer, but I will not pin it in position. They're still available to me when and if I need them. Now I will shut down Visual Studio. Visual Studio will remember the settings in that particular case that I had for it the last time I used it. I start Visual Studio again, and there it is. It remembered my settings from the last time I used it. Now remember, the first time I started it, the toolbox was already pinned in position, and so was Solution Explorer on the right-hand side. And neither one of them are pinned in position now. It is exactly the way I left it the last time I left it. But I'll go ahead and pin them in position because that's the way I like it. And the same thing, on the right hand side, I am clicking and dragging the width of Solution Explorer. You see I've made Solution Explorer kind of narrow there. If I were to shut down Visual Studio right now, it would do the same thing that it did with the toolbox and Solution Explorer being open or closed. It will remember the width that I set to Solution Explorer, and it will have that same width set automatically. But I'm not going to shut it down again. Instead, what I will do is put it to the width that I typically like. And let's see, tools, options, and one of the most obvious things that you can change first of all is the color theme. I selected light, I click OK, and you notice things that were blue suddenly became light. And I'll go back to Tools, Options, and instead of light I will select blue again, click OK. Again, Tools, Options, and just for another demonstration I'll click OK after I select dark. Ew. And Tools, Options again. I'll go back to blue the way I like it. And I think I want to go to, I'm trying to recall where everything is. I think I want to go to Customize. And on the bottom of this dialog box, there's Keyboard button. I click on the Keyboard button. And you see Visual Basic 6 is selected. You can select the keyboard mapping scheme that you desire based on what you're accustomed to or based on what you like. I selected Visual Basic 6 because in my programming experience, I grew up using Visual Basic, starting at version 3.0. And I've stayed with that throughout my development experience. So I've selected Visual Basic 6. And because you're observing a Visual Basic training video, that's what we're going to stick with. Now, based on the mapping scheme that you select, that does not limit your capabilities. What it does limit is the windows that are available to you by default. Like, for example, Visual Basic, because I've selected Visual Basic 6 mapping scheme, there are some other windows that say, for example, a C++ developer may see automatically that I am not going to see automatically. I'm going to have to kind of do a couple of clicks or something to find that particular window, because there's some things that a C++ developer may look at on a regular basis that a VB developer may not, or probably will not, look at on a regular basis. I'll click on Cancel because I didn't make any changes. So okay, and that was it that I wanted to show you on the keyboard on one of the options. There's a whole list of items that you can modify based on your likes or dislikes in Visual Studio. Depending upon the edition of Visual Studio that you have, if you have the Express edition, you may not have all of these options that are available to me because I'm running a professional edition. Text editor, view designer, there's different items that you can modify. Let's see, I'm looking for something concerning database. I'm going to have to close this. I apologize. I forgot what was where. I'm going to go back to options. I was on Customize. I'm going to go back to options. And there's tools and windows. Let's see, web browser, projects and solutions. Projects and solutions, that's not what I was looking for originally, but I'll go ahead and point this out to you. I've modified my installation of Visual Studio so that any new projects or solutions that I create are kept on my C drive in a folder called VIX Apps. You can modify yours as well, wherever you like to keep them. Project templates. In the item templates locations, I do not know what happens if those were to be modified. I typically I don't have any experience in modifying the template locations. I'll click on the ellipses, and I think this is going to end up telling Visual Studio where to put the templates. And let's go ahead and go to this PC. And I will select the C drive. I guess you could tell I've not done this. Let's select users, and I'm gonna select my name, and I'll select that folder. Okay, so the project templates locations will now be saved in the C drive under users/Victor. That's a new experience for me. I've never modified either of these locations, and I'll leave that the way it is now. Okay, back to tools and options again. And I think the last time I was here, I was looking for something concerning database. And once again, depending upon the edition of Visual Studio that you have, whether you have the Express edition, the limitations or the capabilities of the different editions will vary. The Express edition is very limited. Depending upon what you may want to do, you may have to get another download with the Express edition. Let's see, I'm looking for database tools. Well, let's see. Okay, expand environment. And there's build and run options. Okay. There's database tools. That's what I was looking for. And depending upon, well, you can do many things using Visual Studio directly with SQL Server databases, for example. You don't have to have the interface tools that come with SQL Server necessarily in order to create tables or create queries or whatever. You can do this directly from within Visual Studio. Okay. Okay, now we will get into developing a simple application. It's going to be a single document interface application as opposed to a multiple document interface application. MDI apps seemed like they've lost popularity ever since web development became very popular. But we're going to make an application that uses just one document or one form. But before we do that, first I want to point out to you again that on the left side of the screen, the toolbox is empty. It says there are no usable controls in this group. And on the right side of the screen, Solution Explorer is also empty. Now I'm going to go to File. Now go to File, and I'm going to create a new project. It's going to be a Windows Forms application. I'll change the name of the app. Just call it Shout Out. Okay, by default, automatically we see one form called Form 1 showing in the Designer window. This is an example of the template that Visual Studio, one of the templates that Visual Studio has installed on my machine or on the machine that it's installed on. Form 1 was created based on the type of application that I've told Visual Studio that I want to create. So I created Form 1, which is one Windows form. And I'm going to expand the toolbox now. I pointed out to you previously that the toolbox, in my case, is I keep it on the left-hand side. I pointed out to you earlier that it was empty. There is now plenty of tools for me to choose from in my toolbox because Form 1 is there. Let's see. First thing I'm going to do is create a button. I'll double click on button, and I'll put the button where I want it to be. And I'll resize the button. I'll go over to the button. Well, before I start doing that, first, the general guidelines is when creating Windows Forms application. The general guideline is, and it has worked pretty well for me in the past. Generally speaking, the guideline is you create your form, you change any static properties that you can, depending upon what the application is going to do. You change any properties that you can, properties being the name, the height, the text, the color, of whatever object you're talking about. Change any properties that you can, and that's what I'm going to do right now. The form is there, the button is there. Now I'm going to add more controls. And right now I'm looking for a text box. And double click on text box. Oh gee, thanks, it put it right over the button. And I'm going to also add a label. Now I've added all of the controls on this application, this little simple application that I want to add. Now I will change the properties of the different controls. You saw I just dragged, I click on the window, I click and drag the sizing handles on the form and change the size a little bit. Now I'll double click on the label. Oops, I did not mean to double click. I will go back to design mode. Now I will click on the label. I will change the text that's displayed on the label. And this is an example of one of the properties. The text that an item contains is a property of that item. Please enter your first name below. I'll click enter. I'm going to take the text box and going to change the name of the text box. From text box 1 to txt fname. Hit enter. And the maximum amount of characters that I want to allow into the text box is far less than 32,767. So I'm just going to go make it a maximum of 150. And I think we can be fairly confident that it's going to hold first names. And let's see, what else do I want to change here? Let's see, did I change the name yet? Yes, I did. TXT first name. Okay, we have, oops. We already changed the name. And let's look at the name of label. I think I'm going to need to reference the text that's in label, that's in the label. I'm going to change the name of the label. Call it LBL name. And the name of the button, call it CMD shout because it's a command button. And I think I've changed all of the properties of the controls that are on the form. All the static properties of the controls that I want to change. Oh, no, I haven't. Let's look at the text property of the button. Change the text that's showing on the button to shout out. And now I'm going to double click on the title bar of the form. Now move my cursor. You see, I moved my cursor over to inside the class of Form 1. I'm creating a sub procedure called change name. And I'm going to do that once again. I'm going to create another sub procedure called shout out. And inside the sub procedure of shout out, what we want to do is show a message box that has the first name of the person, of the user of the application. Okay, TXT name is not a member of shoutout form 1. Let's see. Let's go back to the text box and look at the name that I gave it. Oh, TXT F name. Okay. Okay, message box. So when shout out is called, when the application is told to shout out, a message box is going to pop up saying hello to whatever name is showing in whatever name the user entered in the text box is going to show up. Like for example, in my case, it might say hello Victor if I typed in Victor, or hello Joe if I type in Joe. In change name, the functionality of the sub procedure called change name is going to be We're going to change the text at the top of the form from saying Form 1 to make it say whatever's in the text box. Okay. Had to change the text that's in the text box. Explicitly tell Visual Basic to make sure that it's a string. Remember, the default text in the form is Form 1. So we're changing it to whatever the user entered into the text box. Now, I'm going to go back to the design mode, and I'm going to double click Shout Out button, and the default event for the control that you double click on, a procedure is created for that event, which is in the button's case, the default event is the click event. So when a user clicks on a button, the text box is not blank, then we want to call shout out, and we want to call change name. Just going to call shout out, and we'll say change name as well. What change name is going to do is going to take the text of whatever is in the first name text box and make that text. It's going to copy that text into, you're going to set the form text equal to whatever is in the text box. And shout out is going to display a message box that says hello, concatenated with the word that was typed into the text box. And I'm going to go ahead and run it without a breakpoint. And it says hello. And let's see. Let me look at something. I thought I did something else. Okay. If txt first name.text is not a blank, okay, then shout out and change name. End if. Okay, I'm going to run it again. Okay, and that's the behavior I was looking for. Not to show anything if it's blank. It says hello Joe. And that's not the behavior I was looking for. Let's look at change name. Me.text equals me.txt fname dot, oops, dot text. Very simple mistake. I shouldn't have made that mistake. Okay, change name is going to change the text of the form. In this case, me is keyword for the form. Make the text of the form equal to whatever's in the text box. Now let's run it again. Oops, you have to enter name. Okay, it says hello Joe. And as we were looking, this is behavior, exactly the behavior that I was looking for. The title of the form is equal to the name that I entered in the text box. In this case was Joe. It says hello Vic, and it changes the name again. That's exactly the behavior that I was looking for. Okay, now we're going to stop the application. And what we're going to do this time is set a breakpoint. Set a breakpoint by clicking in the margin on the left. And the red background on that line indicates that that's a breakpoint that is in effect. And I'll set another breakpoint at shout out. So now I have 2 breakpoints. And I'll run the application once more. Okay, shout out is the first one to be called. And it's going, the message box has not been shown yet. It's just entering the shout out sub-procedure. Now, or next, the message box line will be the next line to be executed. I'm clicking on step into, or you can type F8. There's hello Tim. Okay, see that line was just executed now. Now it's about to exit the sub procedure. And let's see. Change name is about to finish, or is about to be ran. We've just entered the sub procedure called change name. Now I'm going to hover over me.text. Remember, me in this particular case is referring to the text that is showing on the title bar of Form 1. Right now it is currently set to Form 1. And the text that is in the first name text box is currently set to Tim. So this will soon be changed to Tim. I'm going to click F8 or step into. That has not ran yet. I'll step into again. And now you see me.text is now equal to Tim. And so is the first name in the text box. They're both identical, which is the result that we're looking for. And I'll hit continue. That's exactly the result that we're looking for. Oh, one other thing I wanted to change that I haven't changed yet, and I will demonstrate this to you. Right now, the style of the application allows the user to resize the form. And this is what would happen. I'm doing this in a developer environment. This is what the form would look like if the user that was using the application actually tried to resize the form. The alternative to this is to make the form, change the style of the form so it is not resizable. That is very easily done. However, what I'm going to do this time is look at the anchor properties of the different objects on the form. Like, for example, the shout out button. We want the button to stay visible because that's a functional part of, that's an extremely important part of the application. So I'm going to look at the anchor property. Right now you see it's top left. Yeah, the top and left is anchored, and I'll click on top and left. And now those are cleared. I'll click on bottom and right. So that is now anchored to bottom and right, and then I hit enter. Now it's bottom right anchored. So that makes much more sense. And I will click on the form. Well, before I do that, first I'm going to resize the form. I will now click on the form, and I will change the startup properties of the form. You notice when we ran the application previously, the form started pretty much on the left-hand side of the screen. Okay, startup position. I'm going to change it to center screen. Now I'll run the application, test it, and bingo bango, the form is now centered on my screen. Remember previously it was kind of over here towards the left side. Now it starts automatically in the middle. And I will oh, and I forgot to disable my breakpoints. I'll delete it instead of disabling it. I'll delete that one as well. And because okay, I'm going to go ahead and start it again. It says, hello, Timmy. That's exactly the behavior that we were looking for. Okay. As a matter of fact, just to double check some logic that I put in there, I'm going to make sure that if it is blank and I click shout out, that nothing happens. And nothing happened. It still says Timmy. And that is it for this particular demonstration. Just a basic introduction to some of the a small portion of the customizations and options that you can set to change Visual Studio so that you like the environment that you're working in. I hope this allows you to get familiar with some Windows Forms development. In summarize what I did. One of the things that I did was we talked about some of the basic steps to follow when developing Windows Forms application, and that is to design the form and change any properties, that is the text, the color, the size of the font, the name, change any properties that you can during design time, and then go ahead and start adding some code. And thank you very much for watching.